Okay, welcome. Today is Wednesday, 18 September 2019, and this is the kubeadm office hour meeting. And let me share the screen. So everyone can see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see if there are some new participants. I see all faces. So we can move on to the PSA. First PSA 116 is landing. The kubeadm test grid looks okay. So I think that we are on the safe path for the next release. Second PSA, yesterday or the day before, I opened an issue about kubeadm repo code organization for the change that are landing in the next cycle or in 118. And please take a look and comment so we can, as soon as we have quorum, we can start acting on the kubeadm repo for the operator. So let's move to today's topic, which is planning. So first of all, in the kubeadm repo, we created Lubomir already took care of creating the milestone. Currently in the milestone, there are very few issues. I checked it before. We already took care of moving all the pending issue from 116 to 117, and we will get into all the list of detail on the issue when we do backlog grooming. I think that we can move on priorities. Lubomir prepared a list of priorities. I just did really small changes and addition and grouped them in three groups. One is carryover activities that we are somehow already doing and we want to complete in the next cycle. The other is new activity or new feature that we want to that we might have consider for 117, and the third group is backlog activity for 117, which is basically housekeeping or small task that we keep going time by time. Please, if someone has some idea or something that wants to add, feel free to add in one of this group or at the bottom, and I will take care of rearrange things. So my proposal for handling planning today is to go on as usual to go on have a short discussion about each item, try to assign a priority, and at the end the goal of this group is to have one P0, which is the top priority for the next cycle, and the only real things that we commit as a group to achieve. And the second, then we can have one or two or maximum three P1, which is additional things that the group try to work on, and finally we can have more priority, which are clearly something that this group will do at best effort. This work, and in the life cycle, if there are no concern or different idea, my proposal is to go on with this approach. Okay, so let's start with carrier activity. So one activity that started 1 or 2 cycles ago was to prepare for moving kubeadmin out of 3. A lot of work was is already completed. Some work is still ongoing, but there is still something to do in order to comply with the goal that we agreed with SIG architecture, that is to move kubeadmin out of 3 during the 1.18 cycle. And so let's have a look at what Lubomir linked. Okay, this is the umbrella issue. The umbrella topic in KK, and this is the work that we are doing for the import boss, that basically prevent to add new imports. There are some major topics that we have to work to get done for being able to move kubeadmin out of 3. One of them is changing how kubeadmin is handle component config, and basically because component config, the component config that we are using are import for Kubernetes. Today we are using internal types for kubeproxy and kubelet, and this makes the dependency tree really complicated. And Ross is working to a document, to an idea, in order to make component config more flexible, especially, and also for splitting the component config for kubelet, the management of the component config for kubelet, to the management for the component config for add-on, because basically now we manage only the kubeproxy add-on, and we want to get really more flexible and being able to handle potentially any kubeconfig. So an idea, proposal about which priority to give to the overall topic and to this specific activity about component config. Ross, Yassin, you are the really involved in this activity.
So I'm actually thinking somewhere between P1 and P2, simply because this is like not urgent for this cycle, but it needs to be done before the end of the cycle, probably, certainly before the end of the next cycle.
Yeah, I would agree with the P2.
I'm fine with P2.
Personally, I prefer to put this as a P1 because this work, it is a blocker for the add-on, it is a blocker for the move. So if we don't get this achieved, this completed this cycle, we will be in some trouble next cycle for respecting the commitment with SIG architecture, and also we are blocking all the work on the add-ons. So my proposal is to set this at P1.
Fabrizio, just to clarify on the blocker, you're talking about the component config types for kubeproxy and specifically?
Yes, basically my point is the point here is that if we go on, if we don't change how we manage the component config, it will be difficult for kubeadmin to handle add-ons that are different from the kubeproxy.
So you're not concerned about imports here from moving kubeadm out?
It is something that has to, for sure, it is something that is blocking the move of the kubeadmin auto repo, but is also blocking the leveraging on the add-on installer.
So I think that we can actually settle on P1 for use the external APIs of kubeproxy and kubelet, and probably P1.5, yeah, for component config handling.
Okay. And I will setting the import bosses probably also P2, because we have also other ways to control the import that gets into the code. Do you agree?
Sounds fine to me.
Okay. Then we have dual stack support. This is an activity that is managed mostly by Arvin there. We are involved for review. This cycle we already did several PRs, but next cycle this effort is going to move forward and probably land for the overall Kubernetes. So in my opinion, this is a P1 because it's something that we want to actively work.
Yeah, I agree. I think we should not lag behind Kubernetes because we want to provide for users a way to bootstrap a cluster and test the features that are developed. So I think we should aim to minimize the latency between Kubernetes support and kubeadm support.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm also +1 on P1.
Great. So I move to the next one, which is Windows support. Windows support for the kubeadmin join, so not for the master, but only for the workers. Again, an effort that started two or three cycles ago. It lacked for of activities for a while, but at the end of the cycle, we saw some PR landings, so it is something that the community pushed, is pushing, is something that some users are asking for. I would like to get it out of the way, so to really take some time, make an analysis of what we are missing, and possibly completed the work. So I would like to have it as a P1 or P1.5 or P2, because not all the work is in our hands. We need some help from the SIG Windows people. So I cannot commit the team because it is not, we are not owners of the full work.
Yeah, I'm not sure, like how much of the work here is in our basket. So I think that Lumimer is tracking this, but I think that like it was mostly blocked on some PowerShell scripts that needed to be done by SigWindows folks. So yeah, P2 is probably the best choice.
Okay. Let's do it this way. Action. Oh, what is the syntax here? Is
Probably @.
at Lubomir. Okay. Assign to Lubomir. And edit. We have, let's check what is missing and priority. Okay. Fine. So someone has in mind some other carryover activity that I'm missing in this list.
Maybe the system validators. I don't think we moved them yet. We're still reviewing a PR for refactoring them before the move.
I have the PR. I was actually looking at. I need to catch up with Ross on that. I don't understand his last comment. I have that, and then I have another follow-up one to remove the errors thing, so I can have that in as soon as this one's done because it's a follow-up PR. So.
Okay, so they are. I put these under preparing to move command bin out of 3. Is that right? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, and I think that it goes in P1.
Yeah, we also have, I think, aside of this, the last dependency is the IP allocator one.
Okay.
I already opened the PR. I still need a review from Tim Hawkin.
Okay, remove system data and remove IP allocator.
Yeah.
Then if you can link the PR or the issue so the document is consistent.
Will do.
Okay, thank you. And okay, anything else? Okay, let's move to new activities or new feature, new activities that we can plan for 1.17. Okay, so the first one is the kubeadm operator. Probably I already we are discussing this since some time. The operator will be in fact an operator that will allow declarative management or automatic management of kubeadm workflow, and the goal of the operator is to the long-term goal of the operator is to basically enable more complex workflow with kubeadm, like certificate authority renewal, or like changing the configuration of a running cluster. The cap is there. Some of you are already commented, and I think there is still some comment pending, but I don't see huge blockers. So my opinion is that we can act in the for the operator in 1.17, trying to implement a minimal viable product.
Yeah, 1.17 seems fine to me. I think the most like the only outstanding command is mostly around reusing the Kubernetes abstractions such as job or human sets. Like once we resolve this question, I think we should be fine.
Okay.
Yeah, that's one of my concerns. The other major concern is basically around the term of action, as it doesn't map quite like natively on the Kubernetes notion of declarative syntax. So basically, I just wrote like an hour ago a new command there with an idea. So I don't know if you have seen it.
No, not yet, but I think that okay, there is an agreement that there are still some detail to be addressed in the proposal, but nothing blocked, or at least everyone is confident that we can start acting on it in this cycle. So my proposal is to put this at P2, because it's something that it is a new feature. It will land as an MVP. The cap is not yet approved, so it's something that I would like to have, but it's something new. We are not committed with the community. We are not committed with anyone one else. So
yeah, P2 seems fine.
Yeah, it seems fine to me too.
okay, I think that we can do also something. I go back because it will be interesting to assign people to the activities. So here I know that Ross is working on this. I know that Yassine is working on this. Oh, sorry, I brought in the okay. Marek is working on this. Do a stack. We have Arvin there. Windows, probably. Okay, I can work on the operator. I don't know if someone else wants to help here.
I would like to help.
I want to help too.
So Iago and sorry, I didn't.
Rafa. Yep.
I didn't. Okay, great. Okay, next up, P1 beta 3 config version. So Lubomir and I we started talking about this some time ago, and basically we have a trade-off here to consider. We don't want to change the config version too frequent. This is part of the beta contract. From the other side, we are starting to see a list of item or possible change to the config that is starting to get consistent. So the change that I'm aware of are first of all, we need to make our config friendly for people who is using the kubeadm config as embedded object in CRD, for more specifically for the cluster API booster provider kubeadm, that is embedding our config into its own config, because we discovered that the kubeadm configuration in this scenario does not behave properly, because in some cases it requires the user to specify default values, or when it is rendered, it renders empty default values, even if the values is not default, is not empty. And this weirdness is basically are basically due to how OpenAPI behaves, and how the Kube builder assumes that the omit empty and optional settings have to be configured. I think that this is important. It is important to get this addressed, because cluster API is quickly becoming one of the biggest consumer of kubeadm. So I want to be sure that we are providing, we are addressing all the needs or all the concerns that arise from this other project of C cluster cycle. This is one point. The other point is to make the kubeadm config more customized friendly, and this will be addressed by adding object meta to all the top level objects. So because this is required by customize, and it is becoming a common use case to apply customize to the kubeadm config. It is done by some cluster API provider. It is done by kind, and all of them have to change the config, adding object meta, removing object meta before passing to kubeadm. Third possible change for V1 beta 3 API is to improve our readiness for dual stack changes, because basically dual stack change is requires that seeds or address, like the advertised address and became basically change from one value to a list of values. Now we are handling this, allowing user to express comma separated value into the seed or into the advertised address, but this is not nice. And probably we should convert the type of these fields to string, from string to list of strings. Last point, last possible change for our API. Giancarlo? Okay. Last possible change for our API is to make the list of add-ons customizable, because and this is a change that will enable to address two family of problems. The first one is the problem that we have for users that are trying to skip the installation of kubeproxy. And the second family of problems or feature is to enable or to take enable kubeadm to take full advantages of the add-on installer. So making kubeadm capable to let the user to choose their own add-ons.
It's worth also noting here that there's work happening on a node local DNS operator that kubeadm could benefit from through the use of a generic add-on. Yeah.
Yes, this goes under make the list of add-ons fully customizable. And I will add a use local DNS. Or skip kubeproxy. I also write at this point, unify the semantic for add-on configuration. This is a long-standing problem for kubeadmin because we are letting, for instance, we are giving the user the chance to express setting for kubeproxy, but we are not giving the user a similar way to set settings for core DNS, for instance. So we don't have a consistent semantic for letting the user to set add-ons configurations. So in few words, if there are no questions, the TLDR here is that, okay, we are starting to get a consistent set of candidate changes for our API. These changes are enabler for new feature like add-on, are complementary to ongoing effort like dual stacks, and are also enable for a better usage of kubeadmin configuration. So my question for this group is, do you see that we should go for a new API version during this cycle or not?
So I think that we can actually try and go for beta 3. Apart from this list, I also have one item that actually came up to me yesterday, which is basically allowing the API server authorization modes to be specified as an array inside of the cluster configuration. So currently we have a weird scheme of using the extra arcs to extract the current user specifics, then default them, and then place them back into extra arcs. And this is a little bit weird. So I think that the list is like good one to start a new beta 3. But we should probably deprecate in this cycle beta 1.
Okay, so deprecate v1 beta. Oh, sorry, I set this p1. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think it's okay.
Okay.
Yeah, P1 sounds good to me.
And for adding v1 beta 3, which priority do you foresee?
I think that we can start with P1.5.
Okay. Okay, I agree. Then let's see at the end if we want to change something or not. Okay. Something to add about this point?
I have a question. So are we going to deprecate V1 beta 1 nevertheless that we finish V1 beta 3 or not? Or are we deprecating that nevertheless?
I think that given the fact that we already have beta 2, we can safely deprecate beta 1. simply to like start the deprecation cycle, because we have a full year at least before we can actually delete it.
Yep, sounds good to me. I was just confirming. Thank you.
So it is just. It is a full year for beta release.
It's 3 releases or a year, whichever is longer.
Oh, okay. And how long is the deprecation for GA?
It's 3 releases or 1 year, whichever longer, if I recall correctly.
So they are the same, the deprecation for GA
No.
or for beta?
I think like this is for beta, and for GA was considerably longer. It's something like 2 years, but I need to check.
Okay, we have to check, but we agree that we have to start the deprecation cycle.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm even not sure if we already did this.
No, we haven't. We still accept V1 beta 1 and
without raising a warning.
Without raising a warning, and users are still able to basically just feed us V1 beta 1. But given the fact that beta 2 actually only adds new fields, converting it doesn't even have to be like just open the config and flip the V1 beta 1 to V1 beta 2.
Okay. So I think that we are fine also in having 2 different priorities, because I think that we can move to the next one, which is make add-on more flexible. We already talked about some point which overlap with this, let me say, macro thema. I think that this macro thema at the end boils up to 2 things. One is make add-on customizable in kubeadm config. I left these phrases from Lubomir because basically is linking these with phases and with the possibility of skipping kubeproxy, but in my opinion, if we are what we want to achieve is it is not only to skip kubeproxy, but is to allow the user to define its own list of add-ons. So this is a little bit more than kubeproxy, yes or no. And this is, let me say, the user-facing part of making add-on more flexible. So changing our kubeadm config, which is also quoted here. The second part is behind the scene. So assuming that the user is passing, can choose his add-on, is behind the scene. If we wanted to start and to work to get kubeadm using the add-on installer, might be as a alpha feature or feature gated start using the add-on installer. In my opinion, this should be feature gated, and it's something that I would like to get in place. even if I think that in order to get this in place, there is still some work to be done, probably a cap to be written if you want to follow the Kubernetes, let me say, feature process. And because some points should be addressed. First of all, what we need at least these two add-ons ready to be installed, because we want to let the user get a working cluster or using add-on installer or going the old way. I think that for kubeadmin there are at least side point that we should know that how to address in the future, like our gapped environment, like how to pass component config, like how to use dry run, how to do upgrades, eventually how to allow user to customize what it is installing. So this is a huge topic.
I think that this is at least P2 and probably actually P2.5, simply because we need so much stuff being done by the cluster add-ons folks.
I agree with that. Also, generic question regarding this. So, I think adding this to the API, the list of add-ons that are going to be applied, is kind of, is not directly tied to what we expose on kubeadm different phases, because I wouldn't like to see different phases on the CLI, one for core DNS and one for kubeproxy, for example. I would rather prefer to see just one upgrade add-ons command that will take into account the configuration file. But then the problem is, what happens with these settings on the kubeadm configuration when we move to cluster add-on? How we are going to make that work together? So yeah.
I think that's a key part, is using the feature gate. And then there is like a pretty reasonable set of things you can do when you enable the feature gate, but you don't pass a custom add-on installer configuration. Then kubeadm will just in time generate an add-on installer configuration that performs the default behavior, installing kubeproxy and core DNS with the proper settings. And that should work in an upgrade. And you should even be able to then move the existing like core DNS installation into a core DNS operator with the upgrade as well. But that would be, something you would work out toward really the more like beta GA functionality. But I have thought about how that should be built, and I plan to attack it.
My opinion here is that more flexibility around add-ons is something that the user badly wants, and is something that we need, and it is, let me say, orthogonal to the change to the config, to the change for the component config. So it is a topic where I would like to clarify all the pending points, because there are, from the kubeadmin point of view, there are still many pending points to, let me say, to fill all the dots between what we want to do, especially for grades or for corner case like rgapped or dry run. So I'm kind of torn. I would like to push this work, but I don't feel without a cap that tries to figure out at least a roadmap to get there, or what is a priority, what is included in alpha, what we follow up. I don't know. If it is feature gate, it is fine. No support high gapped environment in alpha in the first release. But at least we have to state that we are going to support our gapped environment sooner or later. So I'm fine with P2.5. I can personally commit to help in figure out all the knobs that are required with this, because I think that it is important for the future of kubeadm.
I can help on this as well.
Okay. So I would like to put this at the beginning. Okay, there we are. Fabrizio, I think that we should first work on a cap. Is that fine?
Yeah, that's fine to me. I'm still going to get the actual code, like plumbing, working so that there's something that we can mess around with. But
okay.
I agree that before we get it in, we should have a cap.
Okay, I put the priority for the cap a little bit higher, because it's the first thing that it seems important for this group is to better understand the direction of this. Okay, we have 10 minutes left. So quick overview of backlog. In backlog, we have kubeadm upgrade apply phases. Nice to have, but the main reason for working this is to skip kube proxy, and I think that we are going to get skip kube proxy by other ways. So personally, I don't see the need to get this in place this cycle, and I'm +1 for P next.
Yeah, I think that P3 is a good thing, simply because it's basically a large mechanical change, and is probably good for a relatively new and inexperienced, well, not inexperienced, but with like intermediate experience contributor to actually tackle upon.
Okay.
With some help from us. So it's a good for a starter.
Okay.
Did you just say my name, Ross?
Yeah, if you wish, you can actually tackle with this.
Even if upgrade is a nasty beast.
Yes.
by the way, okay, I agree. It is not a priority. If someone volunteers, we can try to help. And
I actually was just documenting how the upgrade backups
okay
stuff. So I was just in that code.
So it's not it's a best effort. So I put your name, but it is a best effort. So then we have some security improvement. The CIS benchmark is something that we agree that we should wait, because it's not officially accepted by the community. We have some certificate improvement management. I put a P3. This is something. These are things that I work at the best effort. Machine readable output is something that we agreed on the cap last cycle, but at the end no one volunteered for the work. So it is nice to have, but the problem is to getting someone working on.
Hey, Rafa, would the machine readable output would actually help us, would it not? And by us, I mean SUSE.
Yeah,
Sorry.
but Farazen has been stuck for quite some time. We might need to check it out. But there are other things with more priority in general, I think.
Okay.
But we can check it out.
Okay. I think that we did a good job. The only things that is a little bit strange for me is that we don't have a P0.
Which is kind of good because we aren't blocking anyone.
Yes, but P0 is not bluffing. Is, let me say, the most important goal for this team. So my proposal is to raise the priority for the work for kubeadm out of 3.
Yeah, I think that this is fair. But then looking at the list is basically just like this one is just P1.
I don't get if you agree to raise this to P0.
Yeah, I think it's okay.
And the most important, Yassine?
Yeah, it seems fine to me because, like, since we did commit to SIG-Arch for 118, it seems like we can raise this to P0.
Okay. Great. I think that it is a good starting point. And my suggestion is that next week, when Lubomir's team are back, we quickly go through the priorities, so they agree, or we make the final adjustment, and then we are good to go. We have 5 minutes left. Are there some topic that we want to tackle? Okay, I think that we can close 5 minutes in advance. Thank you, everyone. Have a nice day.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
See you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.